Of course, the federal courts, at least two district courts, have now ruled that the second attempt by Donald J. Trump to have a travel ban from individuals from 6 predominantly Muslim countries is still unconstitutional. And we'll see what's going to happen. The president said the other day that he may wait for the U.S. Supreme Court to take up the matter, which might be a few months away when Justice Neil Gorsuch may be in place, a man with a perspective on this who's been dealing with this issue the last several weeks since the first travel ban. Is Byron Henry. Byron Henry in Fort Worth, Texas, is an attorney and constitutional scholar. And Byron Henry, welcome, I think, for the first time to the Bill Cunningham Show. And Byron, how are you?
I'm doing well today, Bill.
All right, let's talk about what happened the other day with these two federal courts. Going back in time, how was the second attempt by the Trumpster different than the first attempt to stop so-called terrorists from coming from 6 or 7 Muslim countries? How was the second one different than the first one?
Well, first of all, the President Trump's administration made some significant changes based on what I believe was a flawed opinion by the Ninth Circuit, not deferring to President Trump in his capacity as the President of the United States. But notwithstanding that, they made significant changes such as exempting green card holders and lawful permanent residents. They excluded all those persons that already had visas issued by the State Department, were holding visas. They said they could travel freely. They wouldn't be intercepted at ports or at airports. They also took Iraq out of the list of 7 countries and dropped it down to 6 because Iraq is cooperating with us with respect to getting information about potential immigrants and people that want to come to our country. He also employed a waiver system which says even if this temporary 90-day travel ban affects someone unduly harsh, somebody that needs to get here for some reason, there's a waiver program where they can apply to the consular office and get a waiver to still come to the country. And most importantly, it actually included some evidence of terrorist arrests and convictions for terrorist activities by persons that were here in the United States from some of these countries. So a combination of changes that were all significant, and a lot of them in response to the Ninth Circuit's decision upholding the stay of his first executive order. So there was a lot of changes, but according to the federal judge that recently ruled, none of that mattered because President Trump hates Muslims, and anything he does against countries that have Muslims in it is going to be presumptively unconstitutional because he said in a campaign trail that he wanted to ban Muslims. So now I guess President Trump, as commander-in-chief or chief executive, can take no actions against any countries that have a substantial Muslim population, according to this judge.
You know, Byron Henry well said that we have the Constitution, which is somewhat generic, but there's a United States Code statute extremely specific that the Trumpster quoted the other night, in which the Congress gave to the president the sole exclusive authority to determine who comes and who does not come into the country on a moment's notice, because that is required if there's some emergency somewhere in the world. The Congress can't act. They're in recess most of the time, and you can't get those 535 degree on anything. So you got to have one person in the country saying, wait a minute, you can't come here for some temporary period of time. Obama did it in 2011 with certain Iraqis. Other presidents have, because of turmoil or because of revolution or disaster, have said, wait a minute, we're going to delay the importation of refugees or even visa card holders from certain parts of the country. And so when the talking heads the last few weeks on CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC got together, the great majority of the talking heads said that this second attempt by Trump is going to pass constitutional muster because of all those exemptions you just spoke about. And so at the end of the day, when I'm listening to Alan Dershowitz and others, it looks as if right now the federal courts are in charge of who comes into the country and who doesn't come into the country, and that is what the federal statutes say does not happen. And so the Ninth affirmed what the federal judge did a few months ago, but then they didn't take it up to the Supreme Court. Do you think Trump is waiting for Neil Gorsuch to get there, hopefully in April?
I don't know if he's waiting, but the timing couldn't be better because by the time this finishes in the district court and goes to the Court of Appeals, it will be perfect timing because it will probably be about the time that Gorsuch has been confirmed as Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And I have to say that I gave the court a little bit of a break on the first travel ban for the reason that there was a little bit of confusion and ambiguity. I still believed it was constitutional, by the way, and I believe the Ninth Circuit's opinion was flawed in a number of ways, as many people have written about. But there was a question about whether or not green card holders and lawful permanent residents were also going to be swept up in this order, and they shouldn't have been. And so President Trump has fixed that. But this new opinion, which basically holds the statements that President Trump said when he was a candidate and a citizen on the campaign trail about a possible Muslim ban, and importing those to a new order that says nothing about religion whatsoever. It does not target Muslims. It targets 6 countries that multiple administrations, Republican and Democrat, have all agreed are countries that export terrorism and do not cooperate with the United States with respect to people wanting to travel here and getting information. Some of them don't even have working governments that can provide us the information about some of these people wanting to come here. And then to say that a person has standing because he lives here and his mother-in-law wants to visit from one of the countries on the list, and she hasn't even applied for a visa yet. She hasn't even been denied anything. So to say that they have standing to issue a nationwide ban on an executive order for national security that Congress has given the president the power to enact because someone may want to visit in the future but hasn't even tried, hasn't even applied for a visa and been denied or tried the waiver is, to me, not just extraordinary. It is, as President Trump said, unprecedented in nature, and there is literally no precedent in the law that I'm aware that would allow someone that kind of standing to enjoin an entire executive order covering national security and immigration based on someone's mother-in-law maybe wanting to come visit in the future.
As a constitutional scholar and as an attorney, Byron Henry of Fort Worth, Texas, how does our Constitution apply to a Somali living in a village 30 kilometers north of Mogadishu, who's never been to America, may never come to America, probably can't spell America, but federal judges have said that our constitutional rights extend to a Somali north of Mogadishu?
Well, if it applies at all, let me just say this. There is court precedent that says it does not apply here. I'm doubtful that it applies to people who have no connection to the United States other than they want to come visit friends or family or want a vacation here. I doubt that it applies at all. But assuming it applies in some instances to some people's connection to the United States that are living outside the country, it certainly does not apply in this instance because, as you probably know, to say that you can't prefer religion over non-religion in immigration is ridiculous because we have dozens of statutes and precedents for. There was a statute called the Lautenberg Amendment that preferred Soviet Jews when they were trying to immigrate. Right. There is immigration protections for nuns and priests and ministers and religious workers of organizations. There are dozens of statutes giving preference. We have tons of statutes on the books that prefer Israel over other countries. It's predominantly Jewish. Is that also a constitutional violation? Are we going to have a court enjoin our friendship with Israel and doing business with Israel because we are discriminating against other Muslim countries in favor of Israel? I mean, that is the logic that's being used here, and it's not only illogical, it's like I said before, there's no legal precedent except that the president can, in fact, take these actions. There's multiple cases that say so, and we are going to have to get out of this court. One judge in Hawaii can dictate national security and immigration, and they need to defer to the executive just as courts deferred in tons of cases to President Bush and President Obama when it came to national security issues.
But no one, when Obama in 2011 banned Iraqis from coming here for a temporary period of time, I can't recall, of course, it's been 6 years, I can't recall that liberals ran to federal courts to issue injunctions against Obama. Did that happen?
Of course not. And no one has ever questioned, that I'm aware of, no one has ever questioned the president's ability to take the actions that President Trump has taken. They have been taken over time by multiple presidents under multiple administrations. The Supreme Court has even ruled on the president's power to exclude people from the country and basically said that a one-sentence denial letter from the consular office is all the due process someone trying to get into this country is due. Courts are not allowed to look behind that order.
No.
If a consular office denies a visa for a Somalian or a Yemeni or an Iraqi for any reason whatsoever that the executive deems appropriate, so the Supreme Court and other courts have said that's good enough for us because the president is acting within his authority delegated by Congress.
Love it. Now, the other thing, you know, as my old days as a federal law clerk, I used to write opinions for motions approved by my federal judge. If I would have given an opinion to my federal judge citing some sort of news interview or some stump speech, he would have threw it back at me and said, wait a minute, that's not precedent, that's not the law. you can't do that. In this opinion by the federal judge, at least the one in Hawaii, he referenced remarks on a TV show of Stephen Miller, one of the president's advisors, and also the comments on the stump by Rudolph Giuliani, and also interviews that Trump had given. Is anything in politics open game to end up in a federal court opinion as proof of the president's intent?
I would say this. Citizen and candidate Trump's statements about a policy that he might consider if he was elected president is fair game if he actually enacted that policy. What we have here is a president talking about things that might be considered based on the nature of the fact that we're at war with radical Islam, and most of the terrorism comes from a certain part of the world based from people that are under a certain follow a certain faith or a certain religion, the radical Islamic faith, from certain countries, which President Obama confirmed when he designated the same 7 countries as sponsors of terrorism. But by using those statements, what you are saying is that any time President Trump takes action against a country that may be predominantly Muslim, and I don't know why it has to be predominantly Muslim, if it has any Muslims in it, if he takes action against that country, it's unconstitutional because of his pre-election stated animus towards Muslims, according to the court. And the problem with that is that President Trump is going to have to take innumerable actions regarding the Middle East. He could do sanctions. He could do military action. So are we now having the ACLU or some organization going to federal court and enjoining the president from taking sanctions or from visiting certain countries or denying access to our country by, for instance, what if the president doesn't want to meet with the president of Somalia and doesn't want him to come here? Can the ACLU file a grievance and say the president has to meet with the president of Somalia?
Sure.
Because if he doesn't, it's racial, it's religious discrimination based on that. And we are to a point are we going to have a lawsuit if the president wants to have a drone strike in Sudan or a drone strike in Syria? Can a federal judge say, no, President Trump, you are not allowed to do that because that's anti-Muslim if you have a drone strike in Syria? That is how preposterous this logic is, that because he said something 6 months ago about something he would consider, that now that he's done something completely different, by the way, this has nothing to do with religion in the order itself, the judge is basically saying, because he said that back then, the only possible reason for this order is because he hates Muslims.
Well, the fact of the matter is what happens the next time, and there is going to be, sadly, a next time, Islamic terror visits America's shore. And if that terrorism likely comes from one of those 6 countries directly or indirectly, then where do you go to get redress? The president, Obama, was held politically to account a little bit, I think, by those who thought, this guy's not strong enough on Islamic terrorism, this guy is soft. And therefore, politically, his party was held to account in the 2014 elections to some extent. But Trump can say, look, I wanted to do these certain things to keep Americans safe, but I couldn't do them because of federal courts. And where do you go then? How do you unelect a federal judge who's appointed for life? If I'm unhappy with some policy of this president, in 4 years, I can vote him out of office. In 2020, I can say, well, I'm against Trump because of the refugee pause. It's not a ban. It's not a travel ban. It's a pause. But politically, these federal judges are not following the law or interpreting the law. They're enacting policy. Now, this is a policy dispute, and these federal judges act as if the Constitution stops the president from acting in an executive function given to him by the legislature. So whenever you got the Congress and the executive agreeing on something, is it fair to say the courts historically have said, we have no role in this because they're separate, equal branches of government, and if 2/3 of the branches of government give Trump this authority, who in the hell is the federal judge to say it can't happen?
Well, I'm not aware of any court opinion when Congress and the president acting at their maximum level of power in the political areas such as immigration, national security, powers of war, powers of exclusion of aliens. I'm not aware of any situation where a president or an attorney general has said, we believe this is bad for the country, we're going to exercise our authority as an executive, and a federal judge has ever said anything but we have to take the executive on its stated reason. We cannot look behind the reasons. We have to believe that they are exercising their authority as it was given to them constitutionally. That deference has always been given. I am not aware, and maybe someone can show me a case, that before these Trump travel bans, I am not aware of any case and I've looked at a lot of Ninth Circuit and Supreme Court cases that have said, I understand the president thinks this is national security. I understand he's subject to classified briefings. He has all the information. We have no information as a federal judge, but we don't buy it. That's not enough evidence. This isn't really keeping the country safer, so we're going to find it unconstitutional. I am not aware of any case where a federal judge has second-guessed the president of the United States on a national security issue such as this. If someone has one, they can send it to my email address.
Byron Henry, every day the president has available to him the Presidential Daily Brief, the PDB, that he looks at every day. He speaks to the director of the CIA. He speaks to Homeland Security, speaks to Mad Dog Mattis, speaks to his top assistants. He's traveling. He's being told this is the threat coming to America from Somalia, from Iran, maybe North Korea, whatever it is. Who in the hell is a federal judge who has seen none of that information that overrules unconstitutional the activities of the president when he's getting the daily briefings, or his staff is, and this federal judge, whether it's Maryland or Hawaii, is not getting anything? It's not their job to keep the country safe. It's the president's job. It's their job to say, did the president act unconstitutionally, when the Congress specifically gave to the president the unique ability to do exactly what he did, and all the lawyers in the Department of Justice said, Mr. President, this will pass constitutional muster, but there's nothing more powerful than a liberal federal judge in a black robe with a gavel in his hand. Well, Byron Henry, we got to go. If the American people want to get a hold of you in Fort Worth, Texas, how do they do it?
They can find me at the law firm of Scheef & Stone, and our website is solidcounsel.com.
Byron Henry, you're a great American. And once again, thanks for coming on the Bill Cunningham Show. Thank you.
My pleasure.